Cami, I know we know each other, but I am Amy Gillentine. I am the publisher and executive editor of the newspaper group here. Brian?
Brian Grossman, editor-in-chief of the Colorado Springs Independent and the Business Journal. Glenn?
And Glenn.
Hi, I'm the new guy on the block. I am the new editor for the Southeast Express.
So, and Cami, can you just start out by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am Cami Bremer. I do currently serve on the El Paso County Commission. Originally from Georgia, I actually got a journalism degree myself from the University of Georgia, and applied that kind of in medical and PR, actually in PR sector, in medical and nonprofit in this community for a long time. Graduated college and got out here as soon as I could. I teased my husband that I fell in love with the mountains, this town, and then him. Anyway, I've been here since 2002, and served in a variety of roles, again, medical and nonprofit for the majority of that. Kept involvement and civic involvement in a lot of volunteer efforts and also in politics. And, at the end of the day, just kind of looked around and decided, I had a young son when I first jumped into the county commission race, and I was really kind of looking around and going, what is this place going to be in a few years, and realizing that the county commissioners have the ability to determine that, and what kind of place do I want him to be able to grow up in, find a job in, potentially, come back and at this point maybe find a house in that's affordable for him to stay and raise a family in. And so it really, that was part of my impetus for jumping in. And certainly those are the kinds of decisions that your county commissioners are making, kind of shaping the landscape for generations to come. I love having that long-term look. I love being very strategic and pragmatic about decisions. I've done a great deal of work with Health and Human Services during my time on the commission. That's kind of my passion part of the job. And of course, the long-term land use planning that doesn't entirely affect Commissioner District 5 as much, because it's all within the city limits of Colorado Springs, but certainly I'm one of 5 that's showing what quite literally the landscape will be in the future.
So kind of answered 2 of my questions. Why you started running, but why are you running again for a second term? What is your impetus there?
There's a lot of unfinished work, an awful lot of unfinished work, and the COVID pandemic kind of it never sidelined the basic role and duties of county employees. Our business continued for us because we then more than ever had more things to take care of, more on our plate. So that never stopped, but it certainly sidelined some of the larger visionary things that were in play before kind of the rest of the world stopped. So I'd like to see quite a few things through. I still think this region is really poised very well for just some really great big things happening if we're smart and strategic about how we're investing in our community, investing in kind of the culture and the small businesses here. That's really, even with COVID and with ARPA funds and CARES Act funding, that was the goal and the focus of still trying to just feed all of that was doing so well and poised for success. And now I think it's time to build on that.
So what do you think over the past 4 years, if you had to distill it down to one lesson learned, what do you think the most important lesson that you learned in 4 years on the county commission?
That's a tough one. I'm learning some this week. it's that genuine approachability is more important than ever. That's actually always who I've been, but I'm not sure that people have felt that from their government in a while. And at the same time, standing firm, making strong decisions, and being accessible, and kind of not to take people's frustration and blame at larger political things personally, and realize that I'm still their first line. They may be mad at what the federal government's doing. They may be upset about state government, but I'm open and accessible to them, and to maybe not to be able to listen, but not take it personally, and offer pragmatic solutions where it's reasonable, and work to build that trust. I do believe that I'm told often that a lot of people lost trust in certain areas of government over the last few years. So work hard to build that up with genuine care about what we can do, and what we should do. Kind of just that's a long, convoluted answer, but it's it's become more apparent. I think we have to also be very strategic in our investments. To get back to the pragmatic side, I think we have to know that each decision is not, it's not just that it's the right thing to do today or tomorrow. It needs to also really make sense financially, strategically, comprehensive planning wise, for us to do that and use resources right now.
Okay. One of the biggest issues that faces both the city and but also in the county is growth and development in a way that makes sense. So how do you approach how quickly the county is growing and balance that with the somewhat limited resources we have, both in land and water and all of that?
This is not a new challenge to our region. It's definitely proliferated. It is about being strategic. Just yesterday, we had a joint city-county meeting. I'm not sure if any of you were there or paid attention to it, but we actually talked about everything from annexation policy to PPRTA capital projects, where there was a great deal of coordination, because our citizens might not care that we change jurisdictional boundaries for the 12 miles of Highway 94 and Mark Sheffel area that need to get redone. You change jurisdictional boundaries multiple times across that stretch, but at the end of the day, we just need our governments to come together and do that, and to coordinate that, and to do it in an efficient, not hodgepodge way. So I think that, again, being very strategic, long-term planning, and coordinating with different entities across those, to realize that that's how we handle the growth. I think we also have some opportunities coming up to change kind of the development application process, to ensure that those areas that are slated for future annexation or future more urban development than the county usually deals with, to make sure that those are built up to specs that can be urbanized later. I also think we have to realize we're in Colorado. We're in a beautiful spot in Colorado that has a huge ag history, and the agricultural industry still continues to be a huge part of our economy, a huge part of really just identity of this region. And so being careful about preserving that in a way that allows everybody to kind of still do with their own land what they would like, if that makes sense. So balancing the private property rights, being strategic, long-term planning, and most of all coordination with, at this point, 7 municipalities in El Paso County, and every single one of them urbanizing more and more.
Okay. What is your view on compromise? It does seem the commissioners all tend to agree with each other a lot, but what's your view on compromising when that doesn't happen?
I like to work through to solutions. It pains me greatly when there's a great deal of conflict, but I try to get to a solution. And ultimately have in mind always, are we meeting the end goal of serving our citizens, serving our constituents? And I will be honest and bold here and tell you that I'm in the middle of quite some discussions that honestly I don't believe should. They shouldn't be as conflicting as they are. And regardless, my duty to the citizens is to carry forward and just get to a solution. I don't believe that our citizens want to see their commissioners fighting. My role as vice chair, to be honest with you, I feel like I'm the peacemaker behind the scenes a lot. And I don't like it when the conflict plays out very publicly, because I don't think that that's a service to our community as a whole. That being said, I have had several occasions of standing firm, and it caused conflict on the board. But I'm going to search all the way around, make sure it's not my own personal pride or selfishness driving when I make a decision that I feel like I need to stand very firm in. And I am in the middle of that as we speak. And I'd love the opportunity to address an email that I probably wasn't supposed to be CC'd on yesterday. If we can wait till the end if you'd like, but.
From us or from?
Yes, it was in response to the meeting notice.
Oh,
it was
yeah, we can absolutely
apply to all. And I believe I feel badly that Mary Jo's not on here. But so it was a bit of misinformation. And to be honest with you, that shall I you post and record all of these? Shall I just?
Yes.
Okay. So there was an email comment that I was behind, that I am behind the politicization of boards of health and library board. And in fact, I trust your journalistic integrity, and I would encourage you to go back to that source and double check a name that is very, very similar to mine. Because I have fought at every point, including the fight I'm having today, about a board appointment not being a political appointment. We have one of the best candidates we've ever had, that I'm hoping will be appointed to the Board of Health, and I'm getting a lot of pressure to make it a political appointment instead. And I have stood firm in many, many, many situations. And I have a great relationship with our former library director. I have great belief in that organization and the direction it's headed. And so it's difficult sometimes to hear that that perhaps a name mix-up has led to a misconception in the community. I believe that politicization of the boards could be very dangerous. It undermines the whole system of what our citizen boards are about. And they're supposed to be representative of our community. And it's easy for one voice to be very loud. And so if you're talking about compromise, I believe I should make sure that procedures and process are followed properly. But at the end of the day, it's my duty to get us to a great solution. And we have a wonderful, wonderful candidate that I hope we're appointing on Tuesday to the Board of Health.
And thank you for clarifying that. Never hesitate with us. We are human and sometimes overly opinionated. And so I so appreciate you addressing that, because clarifying your stance on that is vitally important. So thank you for being bold and speaking up. I appreciate that. So let's talk about leadership. You have a leadership role on the commission. What is your view of what leaders do and how they work with others?
Listen, set the stage with respect, first and foremost, whether that's a citizen, a colleague, a staff member. I first and foremost believe in respecting all people as people. And we will have differing opinions, and some of us are more vocal about those than others. So I think that leadership is really supposed to set the bar in respecting other people. And that helps with the openness and transparency and approachability. I also believe that when that comes out of line a little bit, leadership needs to call that out. That doesn't come as easily to me, simply because I do like it to just all work out, but it doesn't always. And so I think leadership needs to stand firm in casting a vision of what the next right thing to do is. And there were so many times, particularly during the COVID pandemic, that the next right thing wasn't so apparent, that we had different ways we could go. And at the end of the day, like, to set a vision for going this way or that way, and having reason and direction with it, that's strong leadership.
Okay, and for as far as COVID goes, it would appear that we are at the beginning of I have lost count at this point, the fourth wave, the fifth wave. Do you think the county, the Board of Public Health and the county commissioners should support? I think right now they're reporting numbers weekly, to go back to a daily report, so people have some idea about as that wave starts. I think we're at the beginning of, I don't even know what they're calling it at this point, but kind of start looking, paying more closer attention.
I think that more information is always better. Whether and information on which to make decisions is always a good thing. And having the public be able to see the same information that policymakers and leaders are basing decisions on. I think that's always important. So more information side, yes. Do I think that that another wave of COVID needs to dictate and cause the drastic measures that were taken very early on with the very first wave in March of 2020? No, but I think it's always prudent to watch, to pay attention, to be aware, to and again, just respect, whether it's business owners or individuals, own decisions about what they do with that information. I think that, yes, more public health information is always better. So you're right, the dashboard has recently kind of changed. And I think that, the health department also still has a lot of other things to kind of focus on, a lot of other issues. And so I don't believe that the focus needs to entirely be on COVID anymore. I will say that locally, all three of our healthcare systems that are in town, Children's, UC Health, and Penrose, they've always done a great job of kind of viral tracking. And so it wasn't well known or well followed within, the way that everybody does right now, because that information is at our fingertips. But I do believe they've always tracked seasonal flu numbers. They've always tracked RSV in pediatrics. And those are things that, our medical community has always stayed informed on. And so I hope to see that at some point the COVID following and response to that will look much more like what we do with, you know, reaching out to our media partners on a huge flu year, you know, having the data to know that it's going to be a rough year, and working with our partners to communicate prevention strategies. That's the role of the Board of Health.
Okay. So what do you think, should you get reelected, what do you think the biggest issue facing the county is over the next 4 years? And how would you address that?
Closely related to growth and development is housing affordability and attainability. I think we have an incredibly diverse income rate with a widening disparity in the middle. And so I think paying attention to how we can kind of cut red tape to keep housing costs lower, quickening the process for those that are getting units on the market, making sure that those that it's not just a cost tacked onto a house and passed on to a consumer just trying to get in their first starter home. At the same time, realizing that the whole network works together. And so those who may find themselves in the below 50% AMI range, they have solutions, that they have landlords, you know, and private single family homes and apartment complexes that are still willing to accept some of the subsidies that are available to them. And then being very, very strategic about how that is connected to all the other kind of social services and healthcare services that sometimes go along with housing issues. So we're talking about kind of two different ends of the spectrum of housing, but I think that it is a huge deal for our region going forward. I'm very proud of how El Paso County's Economic Development Office, and particularly the Housing Trust Fund, has been very, very strategic in which projects we've chosen to make sure get to, you know, actually break ground, like Solid Rock did last week. It's a that we're being very, very strategic about partnerships and what is needed where, because for every, you know, $1 million home on the market that's put there, there's people move throughout kind of the housing spectrum. So for every unit opened up, somebody is moving from one to the other. And I think it's our role to understand how that happens and make sure that people have an affordable place to live here.
Do you feel like the solution to affordable housing has become rental units as opposed to home ownership? And how would you address that gap so more people can actually move into home ownership?
We have several programs, but let's go back to the principle of that. I mean, I think the market should determine it. You know, are some people priced out of those single family homes right now? Yes. At the end of the day, I also still think that the market will take care of it. Eventually, commissioners need to, and city council and everyone else, apartment association, HBA, everybody needs to be paying attention to kind of what the barriers to entry to single family homes are, do what we can to address those. And again, from a county role, it's, can we incentivize more units on the market without it being a cost burden to go through the process of building a safe home, right? Can we minimize the red tape? Can we shorten the process? Because time is money in the development world as well. So having commissioners who understand that is pretty key. We have to keep in mind too that the rental market, I mean, that's part of our economy too, right? It's you may have, somebody owns that home, somebody owns that property, someone who has invested in this community. And so that's also generating, I mean, there's a bigger economic force there than just, you know, are you renting or are you buying? Either way, we probably have occupants that are contributing to this economy in some way, interacting with it. So.
So tell me an unpopular decision that you made in the past 4 years that you would absolutely stand by and make again. And I apologize, Nevada that was noisy.
Quite all right. A difficult decision that I've made that I would make again. It's there are quite a few. I will be very honest with you in that supporting particularly our Director of Public Health, Susan Whelan, supporting her work that she did, balancing really varied opinions from everybody from every direction about how to lead that organization. I am in no doubt whatsoever that her leadership is so unique, and this community is so grateful to have somebody who could both navigate kind of the political atmosphere and stay focused on broader community health tenets. And so I took some arrows for really coming to both a personal defense and a kind of professional organizational defense. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. I think, you know, Susan is one of very, very few public health directors remaining in Colorado who made it through serving in the pandemic. And I would venture to say that I mean, this community is just so lucky to have someone who could balance all of it and really take care of our community and understand the political pressures and dynamics and find a compromise, find a way through that was very protective and still you know, open with the economy. Public health, you know, historically, it's known for regulation, right? They check your swimming pools, they check your restaurants, they in non-pandemic years. And so it's a very regulatory environment. And to be able to lead a team of people who are trained to do that and went into a career to do that for public safety and health, to have them pivot to education and come alongside and as opposed to carrying a big stick of, you know, threatening when everybody felt threatened at a time. Nobody knew what was going to happen next. So I think that leadership is tremendous and a great service to this community. And I would do that one again, but I still take heat for it sometimes, but it was the right thing to do. And she was the right person to lead our health department through that.